Let's be honest. Have you ever wished you could just find a reset button for your health? Especially when it comes to your gut. Well, what if I told you there's a systematic way to do exactly that? Today, we're going to walk through an incredible four-stage framework for rebooting your gut microbiome, and it all comes from the work of Dr. Nick Norwitz.
Okay, so to really get this, let's do a quick thought experiment. Picture our ancestors' world for a second. They were living with dirt, with animals, out under the actual sun, eating real, unprocessed food. Their guts were basically in perfect sync with their environment. Now let's jump to today. We're swimming in a sea of processed cereals, constant stress, chemicals, antibiotics. We're living in a world that our biology just wasn't built for. It's a total mismatch.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll nail down this modern gut problem. Then, we'll get into the doctor's blueprint. After that, we'll break down each phase, starting with phase 1, clearing the garden, then phase 2, reseeding with care, and finally, we'll talk about how to make it all stick for the long haul in phases 3 and 4.
Right, so this huge clash between our ancient genes and our modern world, it can throw our inner ecosystem completely out of whack. The technical term is dysbiosis. And that brings us right back to the big question. Is it even possible to hit a reset button and get that balance back?
The framework we're digging into was developed by Dr. Nick Norwitz. And what makes his story so powerful is that this isn't some abstract academic theory. Oh no. This is a solution that was forged in the fire of his own personal health crisis. So get this. When Dr. Norwitz was born, he had a life-threatening fever and was given powerful antibiotics. They saved his life. But that one decision had a huge, unforeseen consequence. We now know that getting antibiotics as an infant can increase your risk of developing inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, by an absolutely staggering 500%.
And yup, you guessed it, that's exactly what happened to him. As a young adult, he got that IBD diagnosis. So his entire journey, from those early antibiotics all the way to his diagnosis, that became the driving force, the motivation for creating this whole gut healing system.
So this is it. This is the blueprint he created. It's a super clear four-stage process. You start with elimination. Then you move on to recolonization. From there, you go to expansion and challenge. And finally, you lock in all your progress with long-term maintenance.
All right, let's dive into phase 1. Now this is the most intense part of the whole thing, clearing the garden. The best way to think about it is like one of those old-school magnetic drawing boards, you know? You just give it a good shake and poof, you've got a completely clean slate. That's the goal here.
Now, a really important point here. We're not trying to create a totally sterile gut. That would be impossible and, honestly, a terrible idea. The goal is much more strategic. It's about selectively starving out the problematic bacteria, the weeds, so that you have room to plant the good stuff, the flowers, later on. So how in the world do you do that? Well, this is where it gets really counterintuitive. For about 8 weeks, the plan is to remove almost all plant foods, especially fiber. I know, you're probably thinking, wait a minute, aren't we supposed to eat more fiber? And here's the key. Fiber is the main food source for pretty much all gut bacteria, the good guys and the bad guys. By taking it away, you force a massive change in that ecosystem. So during this phase, what do you eat? You're focusing on the most nutrient-packed animal foods out there. We're talking organ meats, like liver and heart for all those vitamins, and bone-in sardines, which are an amazing source of calcium. And on the don't eat list, all plants, all major sources of fiber, and dairy.
Now I know this sounds extreme, but check this out. There is some serious clinical evidence that this works as a short-term strategy. In one study of IBD patients who weren't responding to meds, this no-fiber approach put an incredible 60 to 85% of them into clinical remission. That's huge.
Okay, so you've weeded the garden. Now it's time to start planting some seeds. Welcome to phase 2, reseeding with care. The whole idea here is to rebuild your gut into a diverse, resilient inner rainforest. And you have to do it really gently, almost like you're caring for a newborn.
The guiding principle for this whole phase is so simple. Diversity breeds resilience. It's just like a rainforest with tons of different plants and animals. It's way stronger and more stable than a farm that only grows one crop. A gut with a wide variety of good microbes is just so much better at handling stress and fending off illness. So this phase takes about 6 to 12 weeks, and the name of the game is slow and steady. You bring back one new food at a time, and you keep a detailed food diary to see how your body reacts. You start with probiotic powerhouses like kimchi and sauerkraut, then move to really easy-to-digest cooked veggies like squash or pumpkin, and maybe even some A2 dairy like goat milk kefir. After you've carefully rebuilt that foundation,
It's time to move into the final 2 phases. This is where we make the big shift, from a temporary healing diet to a truly sustainable, long-term way of life.
Phase 3 is basically the challenge round. It's all about testing your gut's new and improved strength. This is where you strategically reintroduce foods that are usually a little tougher to digest. Think things like broccoli, nuts, and seeds, maybe even raw salads. This is how you figure out what your new tolerance levels really are.
And that brings us to the final phase, maintenance. And you know what? This is just as much about what you don't eat. This is your permanent no-go list. We're talking artificial sweeteners, artificial food colors, and any unnecessary antibiotics. And a great rule of thumb to live by, if you can't pronounce an ingredient on the label, you probably shouldn't be eating it.
And that first item on the list, artificial sweeteners, it is so important to understand why they're on there. In fact, there's one experiment that is so shocking it really shows you the hidden danger.
Okay, you have to hear this. Researchers took a group of healthy people and just had them consume artificial sweeteners. In 5 days, just 5 days, 4 out of the 7 of them became insulin resistant. But here's the mind-blowing part. The researchers then took the gut bacteria from those 4 people and put it into mice that had sterile guts, and the mice immediately became insulin resistant too. It's proof that the sweeteners changed the bacteria, and the bacteria directly caused the metabolic problem. Just wow.
So phase 4 makes it clear that a healthy gut is about so much more than just food. It's a whole lifestyle. It means thinking about when you eat, like keeping it in a 12-hour window. It means supporting your body's natural clock with sunlight and good sleep. And it means managing your stress, which has a direct hotline to your gut.
As we wrap up, I need to be absolutely crystal clear on this point. What we've talked about is a framework, a blueprint to guide your own personal experiment. It is not a one-size-fits-all medical prescription. Everyone's gut is unique, and your journey will be too.
And so I want to leave you with one last big question to chew on. We all know to be careful with prescription antibiotics, right? But what are the invisible antibiotics in your life? Is it chronic stress? Terrible sleep? Maybe some other environmental things you haven't even thought about? Hitting that dietary reset is an amazing start, but building a truly resilient gut means looking at the whole picture,